Hey, it's Glassbox here and welcome to my HTML video tutorial series. In this video tutorial series, we will be covering how to build web pages using HTML. The focus of this entire video series is to simply show you how a web page is built using various different features of HTML, such as links, tables, styling, images, and so on. Why am I creating this video series? So like I said, as part of my October update, I'd like to start discussing and showcasing technologies other than strictly focusing on just automation, so that people get a wider view, a wider exposure to other technologies out there which is or has a strong relation to automation. And HTML just happens to be one of them, especially if you use technologies like WebDriver, Selenium, and so on. So for my first video tutorial on HTML, we're just going to simply try to create a HTML page, render it, and just make sure it's working. In line with that, we're also just going to make sure that we have an environment which is ready for us to do such tasks. So talking about environments, the first thing we need to talk about is the underlying OS and the tools we use to create web pages. So the OS really doesn't matter. You can use whatever you like. Windows, Linux, Mac, makes no difference whatsoever. When it comes to the tools, I prefer to use a text editor. Why? Because HTML is such a simple scripting language. In fact, the actual term for HTML is hypertext markup language. It's a simple scripting language that is used to render elements on a web page. It really isn't any more complicated than that. And to create these scripts, I really prefer not to use a heavy or lightweighted IDE where you have various different options of doing various different things. I just want to get away from all of that and use a very simple text editor. In my case, I'll be using Notepad++, although you can use anything that is equivalent to it. So enough talk, let's actually get started. The first thing I'm going to do is save this page as a HTML page, so that when I actually start writing lines of text into this file, it will be recognized as text that belongs to a HTML page. So to create a simple HTML page, all you need to do is go to File, Save As, find a directory of your choice, and give your file a name. So in this instance, I am just going to call it index. Now, why am I calling it index? Really, it doesn't matter. You can call it whatever you wish. But traditionally, the index page is treated as the home page of any given website. Whenever you navigate to a website, assuming you haven't defined where your kind of home page is, a home page is the first page you see when you go to any given site. If a defined home page doesn't exist, then when you go to that website, the index page is the first page that is automatically loaded. It is essentially treated as the beacon for that site. It is the first page you visit. So because of that, I'm simply going to call this page index page. Now moving forward, to actually save this page as a HTML page, you then have to give it the extension .html. Once you've done that, the second thing you need to do is select the save as type. Now the save as type for me currently is set to .txt. In other words, if I save it, it's going to save as a .text file. I don't want to do that. What I want to do is select that and select the all types. By selecting all types, this .html is recognized as an extension as of when I save this file. So now if I save the file, this file is now effectively a HTML page. So if I now go to that directory, you can see that this is now treated as, in my case, a Firefox document. Now, in my current operating system, Firefox is the default browser, hence why it's treated as a Firefox document. In your case, depending on what default browser you have, it could be treated as a Chrome, Safari, it really doesn't matter. If I now double click on this, you can see that it's opened as a web page. So this is it. This is as simple as it is. This is now our web page. So let's go back and actually write some really quick HTML code to actually get something to render on the page. So the first thing I'm going to do is just write some really simple text like, and that's it, and just save that. If I go back to my HTML page and just refresh the page, I can see that it's printed that text there. If I right click and see the source of the page, I can also see that that is the source of the page. That's literally what I wrote. So let's close that and go back. So it's really not difficult. It's treated as a page, and this is simply re-rendering the HTML page based on what I've put in the text file. So let's now actually write some code. Now, I don't want to really spend this video going through every line of code I write, because I want to do that a little bit more explanatorily. In other words, I don't want to kind of just write a line of code and just give a brief explanation, because I don't really feel I'll do it justice. I'll try to do it anyway, but what I would really like to do is just write some code and just get something working. I think it's more important in principle that you get something working instead of having to fully understand exactly what you're working, especially when we're going to go through this in the next video anyway. So let's start. So the first thing I'm going to write is HTML. Now, what does this do? What does this mean? So like I said, I want to keep it brief and simple. This is basically an element inside a tag. We'll go over tags and elements in much more detail going forward, but this is simply what that is. This basically is the code base of the entire page. Every code you have needs to essentially go in between these HTML tags. The next thing we'll have is a body, and then again close the tag off. In between these tags are the fundamental body of your HTML code. In here we're just going to write h1, and then again close it off. So what's h1? H1 is a type of tag. It is basically a heading element. This is basically a predefined type of text in a predefined text format. So anything we write in here will have h1 predefined settings already applied to it. So if I now say hello world and save the page, what's now happened is all the settings of this particular tag, which is predefined in HTML, has now been applied to this text here. So let's save it and go back to our web page and re-render the page by simply refreshing the page. We can see that this text has now changed. What has happened to the text? In essence, the settings of this h1 tag has now been applied to hello world, and when we refresh the page, that has been applied to this page. So if we go to this page and view source information, for instance, we can see exactly what we typed in. So in this video, the first thing we talked about was your environment setup, which is exceptionally simple. It really doesn't matter. The only thing you really need is a text editor. You don't need any fancy IDEs. You don't need anything heavyweight. A simple text editor is all you need, nothing else. The second thing we did was to save a page and get it recognized as a web page. So in our instance, we just made sure that when we saved, our text script was recognized as a web page. And finally, we just went back and we wrote some really basic HTML tags to generate, or rather render, text on a web page in a very specific way. So that's it for this video, folks. Thanks for watching. Hi guys, it's QAShahin here, and I really appreciate you guys watching my video. And if you've liked it, then give it a thumbs up. If you already haven't, hit the subscribe button below to stay up to date with my latest video releases covering all aspects of technical testing. Also, follow me on Twitter and Google, links in the description below. Until next time, ciao.